On September 1st, I took my kids to our farmhouse. My parents were enjoying themselves with my sister and her children. As I arrived, my sister snapped, "Why did you come with your kids? This isn't your place." My parents stayed silent. They pushed my children away. They didn't know who they were messing with. I ruined their peace in minutes. My name is Claire Monroe. I'm 33. And if you think you know how this ends, stay tuned. What breaks first, your heart or your patience, when the people who gave you life start treating you like an outsider in it? The smell of barbecue filled the air as I stepped through the gate. My sister, Lacey, was standing by the pool in her designer dress, holding a glass of white wine, pretending she owned the place. My kids ran ahead, little feet crunching the gravel, but before they could reach the swing set, Mom blocked them with her arm. "Sweetheart," she said sharply, "you should have called first. We're having a private family gathering." I blinked. Private? With my parents at our farmhouse. Dad adjusted his sunglasses, not meeting my eyes. Lacey's family needed a break. "You always bring chaos." I laughed, not the funny kind. "Chaos? You mean honesty?" Lacey rolled her eyes. "Oh, please. Don't start your drama. You're always trying to make everything about you." I looked at the kids, confusion clouding their little faces. "Go play, honey," I whispered. But they didn't move. Mom's hand was still raised like a gate. That was the moment something in me cracked, the part that always forgave, always stayed quiet. I reached into my bag, pulled out a small black folder, and set it on the picnic table. "Since we're talking about what belongs to who," I said evenly, "let's talk ownership." Their laughter died instantly. Mom's words echoed in my head. Private family gathering. That phrase had always meant one thing: everyone except me. I sat at the picnic table, my kids clinging to my arm as Lacey smirked. "Don't look so offended, Claire. You moved to the city, remember? This is our weekend." I kept my tone calm. The farmhouse deed has 4 names on it. I just came to water the plants and let my kids play. Dad's laugh was sharp. "Don't start quoting documents to us. You wouldn't even have a share if we hadn't included you out of pity." That was his favorite narrative, that my success was charity. The truth was, I'd paid the property taxes for the last 7 years while they enjoyed vacations here. I opened the folder on the table. Inside were receipts, bank statements, and a new legal notice. "Here's the thing," I said evenly. "The farmhouse hasn't been under Dad's name for 3 weeks. I transferred it into a family trust, one that excludes anyone who doesn't contribute." Silence. The color drained from Mom's face. Lacey's wine glass slipped slightly in her hand. "You wouldn't dare," Dad hissed. "Oh, I did," I replied. "And since you didn't read the notice mailed last week, let me save you the trouble. You're now guests on my property." The kids looked at me wide-eyed. For the first time, I smiled without fear. Lacey's voice cracked. "You can't just—" "I can," I interrupted softly. "Because unlike you, I handle the bills that keep this place standing." The air turned thick, like the pause before thunder. Then Dad's phone buzzed. His lawyer's name flashed on the screen. He answered, listened, and his jaw locked. "Claire," he said slowly, "what have you done?" "What have I done?" I repeated, my voice steady as I stood. "I've finally acted like part of the family you always said I wasn't." Dad's knuckles whitened around his phone. "You moved the property into a trust without telling us? That's illegal." I tilted my head. "Actually, it's not. The deed was in my name as co-owner. I just secured my shares so it couldn't be sold or borrowed against again, without my consent." Lacey's smile twisted. "You're lying. You wouldn't even know where to start with legal documents." "Funny," I said, pulling another paper from the folder. "Because the lawyer who notarized these, Ms. Naomi Blake, is also my business partner." Mom's voice cracked. "Claire, why are you doing this? We're family." "Family?" I whispered. "You mean the same family that told my son he couldn't swim in his own pool? The same one that let Lacey's kids sleep in our rooms while mine sat outside in the car?" No one answered. The only sound was the wind rattling the wind chimes on the porch. I crouched beside my kids and said quietly, "Go play on the swing now. It's yours again." They ran off hesitantly, watching the adults with cautious eyes. Mom reached for me, her tone softening into manipulation. "Honey, you've misunderstood everything." "No," I said, standing tall. "You misunderstood me. I'm done being your afterthought." Lacey crossed her arms. "So, what, you think we'll just leave?" I smiled faintly.
No.
"I think the sheriff's deputy arriving in 5 minutes will ask you to." Her eyes widened. "You called the police?"
Of course not, I said.
"My lawyer did." And right on cue, the sound of a car rolling over the gravel driveway echoed through the still air. The black SUV pulled into the driveway, gravel crunching under its tires. A tall deputy stepped out, hand resting on his belt. The tension around the table thickened like humidity before rain. "Afternoon," he said, eyes sweeping over all of us. "We got a call regarding property occupancy clarification." Dad's voice rose. "This is my land. She's my daughter. She's confused." The deputy unfolded a document from his clipboard, the copy of the trust deed I'd filed last week. "Mr. Monroe, according to county records, your daughter, Miss Claire Monroe, is the primary trustee of the property. You, ma'am, and your other daughter are listed as temporary guests until further notice." Lacey gasped. "You mean she owns this place?" The deputy nodded calmly. "Legally, yes." Mom clutched her pearls like she'd been slapped. "Claire, you can't humiliate us like this in front of the kids." I looked at her evenly. "You did that yourselves when you pushed my children away." The deputy tipped his hat politely. "I'll give you folks 30 minutes to gather any personal belongings not registered under the trust." Lacey exploded. "You can't do this to family." I sighed. "That's exactly why I'm doing it. Because if I wasn't family, you'd have respected boundaries a long time ago." Dad's face turned crimson. He jabbed a finger toward me. "You've turned into something unrecognizable. We raised you better than this." "No," I said quietly. "You raised me to serve, not to stand." The deputy looked between us, then back to his car. "I'll wait by the gate. Try to keep it civil." When he left, the silence was deafening, just the sound of Lacey's kids whining and my father's slow breathing, broken by pride. Then Mom whispered the line that made everything click. "So, you really want to erase us, don't you?" I smiled softly.
No, Mom.
"Just the version of you that erased me." They started packing, not out of obedience, but out of disbelief. I stood by the porch railing, watching them move through the house like ghosts who'd finally realized they didn't belong there anymore. Mom stormed out with a box of picture frames. "You'll regret this, Claire. You're poisoning your children against their grandparents." I leaned against the post. "They don't need poison to see the truth." Lacey followed behind, clutching a handful of luxury handbags like war trophies. "You think this makes you powerful? Everyone in town will know what kind of daughter you are." I smiled faintly. "You mean the daughter who paid the property taxes, repaired the roof, and covered your last 3 family emergencies while you were in Cabo?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Dad lingered the longest, standing near the old swing set. The same one he built when we were little, back when he still laughed at my stories and called me his steady girl. Now his silence felt heavier than his anger. "Claire," he began, his voice cracking just enough to almost sound human. "It was never supposed to be like this." "I know," I said softly. "It was supposed to be better." He looked at the farmhouse one last time, the vines climbing the porch, the faded shutters, and something in his face broke. "You really changed." "I finally started living like you taught me," I said. "Just not the way you meant." They left before sunset. Dust rose behind their car as it rolled down the dirt road. My kids ran to me, breathless, their laughter slicing through the still air like sunlight after a storm. "Mom, are they coming back?" my daughter asked. I knelt, brushing hair from her eyes. "Not until they remember how to treat family." That night, for the first time in years, the farmhouse felt peaceful. The following morning, the quiet was almost strange. No clinking wine glasses, no sharp laughter, no tension heavy in the air. Just birds, sunlight, and my children's voices drifting from the yard. I walked through the house, room by room, reclaiming the space that had been mine all along. The walls seemed to breathe again. The old photographs were gone, replaced by empty hooks and faint outlines of where their shadows once hung. It felt poetic, their absence finally creating space for peace. By noon, my lawyer Naomi arrived. She set her laptop on the counter. "You handled yourself better than I expected. They've already tried to contact the trustee office. Your documents are airtight." I poured her coffee and smiled. "Let them try. I'm done fighting for approval." Naomi leaned back in her chair. "What's next?" "Repurpose the farmhouse," I said. "A place for single mothers to stay temporarily while they rebuild. I already drafted the proposal." Naomi grinned. "That's poetic justice, Claire. Turning their pride into purpose." As we finalized paperwork, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from Mom, Lacey, and Dad. None of them said sorry. Only "how could you?" and "we need to talk." I muted the thread. I'd already spent half my life answering them. That evening, a local news page posted an article. Community member reclaims historic family farm to launch shelter initiative. The photos showed me and my kids standing by the farmhouse gate. The headlines spread faster than I expected. Messages poured in from neighbors, women I'd never met, thanking me for doing what so many of us wish we could. For the first time, my story wasn't about loss. It was about reclamation. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. 3 days later, the story had reached every corner of town. People I hadn't spoken to in years were reposting the article with captions like, "Proud of you, Claire," and "Justice served." It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rewriting the legacy my parents had twisted. Then the call came. "Claire." Dad's voice cracked through the phone, heavy with something I'd never heard before: defeat. "We're losing the city house. The bank froze our joint account after you withdrew your name." I stayed silent, letting the weight of his words sit between us.
He sighed.
"Your mother's been crying for days. She wants to talk." I thought of the woman who told me I was never enough, who stood by while her grandchildren were pushed aside. "Tell her," I said quietly, "that actions have echoes." He didn't respond, just breathed heavily before hanging up. Later that night, Lacey posted on social media, a desperate apology disguised as self-pity. "Some people change when they get money," she wrote. Comments poured in, most defending me, a few mocking her hypocrisy. Ethan, my neighbor and closest friend, texted, "Ignore the noise. You did what they never had the courage to do, break the cycle." I sat on the porch with a glass of iced tea, watching the sun sink behind the orchard. My children chased fireflies near the fence line, laughter echoing through the fields. The peace I'd fought for was finally real and earned. Just before going inside, I saw the mailbox flag lifted. Inside was a plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single line in my mother's handwriting. "We saw the article. Maybe you were right."
No apology.
But this time I didn't need one, because I had something better, proof that they finally saw me. A week later, the farmhouse looked different, alive. Sunlight poured through the curtains, carrying the scent of paint and new beginnings. The first 3 women from Naomi's shelter program arrived that morning. A young nurse with 2 toddlers, a college student trying to rebuild, and a quiet woman named Teresa who'd left an abusive marriage. I handed them the keys myself. "This place isn't charity," I said softly. "It's a reset button." They smiled with tired eyes that understood more than words could say. As they unpacked, I walked to the edge of the porch, feeling the late summer wind move through the fields. The same house that once held humiliation and silence now echoed with children's laughter and the hum of second chances. That evening, my phone buzzed with a message from Lacey. "Mom sold her jewelry. Dad might take a job. We're figuring things out." I stared at the screen for a long time, then typed back just 3 words. "I wish peace. Not forgiveness. Not reopening the door. Just peace." At dinner, Naomi raised a toast to boundaries that build, not break. Ethan squeezed my hand. You turned betrayal into blueprint. I laughed quietly. Maybe that's what strength really is, not revenge, but redesign. Outside, the orchard glowed beneath strings of warm lights. The women talked by the fire pit, sharing stories of survival. My kids helped serve pie, giggling as whipped cream smeared across their noses. For the first time, I saw clearly. The family I lost was simply making space for the one I was meant to build. Later, when the guests left and the night settled into calm, I stepped onto the porch once more. The stars shimmered above the quiet land. I whispered to the wind, "Grandma, you'd be proud." And in the hush that followed, it felt like she whispered back.
Dạ, dạ, cái này được.